Hello, and welcome back to another season of Crossing the Line. Now, for those of you fans of Crossing the Line, some of you may notice that I am not Sergio Cano. And to the left of me is not Brian Kilman. Well, that is because those guys got called up by the Houston Astros thanks to the Fail Marys. Ain't that something, Matt?
I knew those Fail Marys were going to catch on eventually, Sergio. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, to the right of me is Matt Entrikin, one of the original co-hosts. I am Jerry Peralta, and to my left is Josh Coleman. We are taking over for both of them today. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. Jerry, I'm ready for the newest season of Crossing the Line.
Same here. How about you, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for this. I've been looking forward to this all day. Now, guys, let's just hop right into it because there have been a lot of sports happen. Well, mainly a lot of sports got canceled, but now we're back into the NFL. And let's kick this off with some NFL talk. The Saints, they're coming off of a huge loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, 34-24. Drew Brees only managing to put up 312 yards, a touchdown and interception. But Matt, my question to you is this something we should be concerned about? Should Drew Brees and the Saints be concerned moving forward after that Week 2 loss? Absolutely
not, Jerry. And here's why. This is the problem with modern day America. We freak out the minute things get just a little bit bad. Okay, that's why everybody freaked out when Tom Brady and the Patriots were struggling early a couple seasons ago. That's why everybody freaked out and bought out all the toilet paper in grocery stores all across America in March when COVID hit. Okay, and you know what happened in both instances? Tom Brady and the Patriots won the Super Bowl and toilet paper came back into stock. Okay, so no, I'm not going to condemn a man for not playing as great as he usually does 2 games into the season. A season that didn't feature any preseason games. A season that didn't allow Drew Brees to build chemistry with teammates, namely Emmanuel Sanders, who is a lot more elite than the 4 receptions for 33 yards that he's accrued so far in the season. Drew Brees is an NFL legend, a future Hall of Famer, and I'm not going to freak out and condemn this man who threw for 312 yards that game just because his air yards per attempt is a little bit low. And another thing is that you have Drew Brees, a guy who's been there and done that, won a Super Bowl, and rarely ever does youth and strength beat wisdom and experience, and that's what you have in Drew Brees.
Yeah, I mean, just wow. And you also have to take into consideration, too, they're out Michael Thomas. He's gone for a couple weeks. Their star receiver is gone. And, I mean, Alvin Kamara has actually had to pull double duty. He's leading the team in pretty much reception yards as he had, I think, 95 yards receiving in that game against the Las Vegas Raiders, and he had 75 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing for them. So he's kind of doubling up. But, Josh, how do you feel about all this?
I'm not worried about the Saints as a whole, but I am worried about Drew Brees. To me, those 312 yards, while they were impressive against the Raiders, it's the accuracy and his arm talent that has me concerned. It doesn't look like the same Drew Brees that we've had in previous seasons. His arm doesn't seem like it has the same kind of strength that it had even last year or 2 years ago, and his accuracy seems a little bit down. Now, I'm not too concerned about the Saints because, as you said, they're out Michael Thomas, who's their number 1 receiver. That's going to be huge for them. But Drew Brees still has Alvin Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders, like you mentioned, he doesn't have the greatest chemistry, but that's going to build. And then Jared Cooks, who's returning from last year. Those are receivers that are going to help him out, but they don't have anybody to push the ball down the field, and that has always been Drew Brees' biggest weakness, especially late in his career. He's lost a little bit of strength to push the ball down the field. Now, I don't think that they're going to be going 10-6 or anything. I think they're still going to be a very good, high contending, Super Bowl contending team. But I don't know how well Drew Brees is going to maintain that arm throughout the entire season, especially because last year we saw him get hurt early in the season. I believe it was week 3, and Teddy Bridgewater came in and won 5 games. I think that's a similar situation that can happen this year with the Saints. Because Drew Brees, he's now 40, his body isn't the same, it isn't holding up the same way it has. I think he gets hurt, and I think that's going to be the biggest help for Drew Brees, because last year when he came back, he looked tremendous.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Michael Thomas is the most blatant excuse for Drew Brees. I'm not going to disregard that. That is the biggest issue, and you get that piece back. I mean, Drew Brees has so many different weapons, so I'm not worried that he can't throw the ball, for 400 yards and be throwing 50-yard passes. I mean, he's 41 years old. What do you want from him? I'll take the experience and the wisdom any day. I'll take that over the arm of Josh Allen and any other guys. And so, like I said, wisdom and experience beats anything, just as Cam Newton, just as Jared Goff, guys who lost to old quarterbacks in the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's fair. I mean, and for me, I'm looking at this. I'm not concerned. I'm with Josh here. I'm not concerned for the team as a whole. It's offensively right now, just because we saw the defense for the Saints step up huge against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Now, in all fairness, Tom Brady's still getting used to this new system of his. He's not used to working with anybody other than Bill Belichick, so he's got to get into it. But, I mean, they really had Tom Brady's number. They got 2 interceptions, and one of them was a pick 6. But as far as the Saints go, if your offense isn't producing a lot of yards and keeping the ball in their possession for long periods of time, your defense is going to wear out, and eventually it's going to catch up with you in a lot of games.
And I agree with you that Drew Brees' wisdom and experience is going to win games this year. But those 312 yards and him not being able to push the ball down the field is going to hurt, because now defenses can creep up and play you within that 10 yards that you get for 1st and 10, and I think that is going to be a big issue for the Saints.
Yeah, well,
He'll be fine.
Yeah, well, they'll figure it out eventually. Sticking with the NFL topic, though, this past week, injuries galore. I mean, without the preseason that you mentioned, Matt, the big question was, are players conditioned? Will their bodies be able to handle just jumping straight into a season? And, looking at 2 teams in particular, mainly because they're matching up this week, the Giants and the 49ers both suffered huge losses. But, Josh, which team really suffered the most this past week?
I sided with the 49ers losing the most, strictly because of what they could do this season. The Giants aren't going to be a Super Bowl contending team like the 49ers. They still maintained most of that roster from last year's Super Bowl coming into this year, minus, I think, a couple guys like DeForest Buckner who got traded to Indianapolis. I think that with their injuries, especially to the defensive line with Nick Bosa, that is going to be crucial for them and kill their season, because their defense was made off of the pass rush last year, and if they can't replicate that, it's going to be a tough way back into the Super Bowl for them.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? How do you think about this so far?
You're wrong, Josh, and here's why. Okay, listen to me. A defensive end can have the biggest impact in a single game, but he cannot have the biggest impact over the course of a season. And that's what you get in a guy like Saquon Barkley, who is the face of the New York Giants franchise, and who the Giants have built a team around, okay? And so I'm going to ask you a question here. Do the Titans make the playoffs or even the AFC Championship without one of their defensive guys, rather than Derrick Henry? If Derrick Henry were to have gotten injured, would he have still made the playoffs?
It depends on which defensive guy, in my opinion. But I will agree with you, one person doesn't make the Titans' defense. But if you look at what Nick Bosa did in his rookie year for the 49ers, you cannot discount the fact that their defense thrived around Nick Bosa.
That's true. I mean, you can't substitute for a great pass rush. But if the 49ers don't make the playoffs this year, we're not going to blame it on Joey Bosa not being there. Or we're going to put a lot of blame on Jimmy Garoppolo, will we not?
Yes, but he's also hurt. So that's also, outside of the defense, the 49ers have, I believe, 4 IRs with Jimmy Garoppolo getting hurt, 2 of their running backs. George Kittle's out. Their offense is just as depleted as their defense, and Jimmy G, as good or as bad as you may think he is still a good quarterback, but Nick Mullins is going to be starting for them this week. That isn't a good recipe, and then you're looking at Jerick McKinnon to be forced into a bigger role, and they typically use a backfield by committee. Now it's Jerick McKinnon, Jeff Wilson. I don't have the most amount of faith in their offense without those guys, and then you take their pass rush out. It just doesn't look great for the 49ers.
I understand that. I'm just saying that a team's success is more reliant on their offense than it is the defense. The the Titans without Derrick Henry last season would not have near the same success that they did if he was on the sidelines.
Agreed, but for the defense part, look at the Broncos. 2015, they won the Super Bowl. Are you going to credit that to the offense?
That's why I said one game can have the biggest impact. A defense guy can have the biggest impact in one game. But over the course of a season, you're not going to give all the credit to a defensive guy.
That's fair in hindsight. A defensive player is not going to have the biggest impact, or they could have the biggest impact in a one game or 2 games. But you look at the San Francisco 49ers right now, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, questionable, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, doubtful. Those are 3 guys in your backfield that you may not have coming into this game. And yeah, the Giants are down Saquon Barkley, the face of their franchise. But Saquon Barkley hasn't even been putting up the numbers that you would want from him. He ran for less than Ben Roethlisberger in that Week 1 matchup.
I'll give Matt that.
It's only 2 games, but still though, you need production from those star guys, kind of off the bat, and that's where I feel Jimmy Garoppolo and them have been doing.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, you have in the Giants offense, you have your 2 leaders, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones has not been playing well either, and when you rely on Saquon Barkley to give you a lot of production, and his absence, when you don't have a strong running game or a strong passing game, both those become obsolete, and you're going to get into a lot of trouble. If you can lean on Saquon to give you production, that opens up things in the passing game.
And
absolutely,
we could argue this all day. But let's move on to the next topic. And this is the last NFL topic that we have. Guys, we're moving into Week 3. At the moment, there are 11 teams in the NFL who are winless. But my question to you, Matt, I have 2 picks of my own here. But which winless team has the best chance to make the playoffs?
Without a doubt, it's got to be the Houston Texans for me, guys. This is a team that's won their Division 4 out of the last 5 years. This is a team that has Deshaun Watson, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, a guy who still has some unrealized potential, in my opinion. I think David Johnson has looked promising for the most part, despite one less than expected game. And I think Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, their 2 receivers, are guys who are about to get unleashed. And, of course, they were playing some pretty tough opponents. It's not every day, 2 weeks in a row. You got to play the reigning MVP and the reigning Super Bowl MVP on teams that most of the NFL world are going to say are the 2 best teams in the NFL, and the Ravens and Chiefs.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Josh?
I agreed with Matt right there. The Texans were one of my picks, but my real true number 1 pick is the Eagles. They play in the division of what I like to call the NFC least, because there's only 2 teams in there that ever have a chance to make it to the playoffs, and they're looking at the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Cowboys are 1-1. Eagles are 0-2. They haven't looked great offensively, but those can be fixed. They're missing 2 wide receivers in Alshon Jeffrey, who is questionable this week, and then Jalen Reagor, who's about to be put on IR with a thumb injury. Rager's a rookie with blazing speed. I think he could really help this offense out. But if you look at the tight ends, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, they can make up for those deficiencies that you have in the wide receivers corps. Plus, you still have Miles Sanders and Boston Scott in the backfield. I think this team offensively has what it takes to make a push for the playoffs, but defensively, they're going to need to be a lot better and pick it up in order to make the playoffs. But again, it's NFC East. All they really have to do is go 8-8 to make the playoffs.
I don't know, the Washington football team, the first place Washington football team, they're looking pretty dominant, in my opinion. Also, we know Carson Wentz is going to get hurt for the season sooner or later. So Jalen Hurts goes in the game, and I feel pretty confident in his protection. He'll take the Eagles to the playoffs if it gets to that point.
Wow, this is kind of interesting because I have one that I doubt either of you picked, and I'm just kind of going with it. The Bengals. I write.
That's tough.
Okay, I'm throwing it out there, and I'm going to stick with this pick because it's definitely been in a rebuilding phase. But as right now, I'm comfortable saying they make the playoffs. Now, I'm not necessarily saying they are a top seed. I don't say they go any better than a 7th seed. And and they lose in the wild card, they don't go very far. I think right now the production they're getting out of Joe Burrow, that guy, he may be struggling, but he's balling out right now. I mean, you can't deny it. He has 509 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns. 1 was a rushing touchdown. I mean, and he's doing it with the dumpster fire that is around him. You know, the coaching's not there. The offensive line definitely isn't there. Their defense hasn't been doing it. But he's kept the Bengals in these games and almost given them a chance to win on separate occasions. And then also behind him, Joe Mixon's also been taking a lot of the load off of it, having 115 yards for him on the season. I'm going to stick with this. It's an out there pick.
Yes.
And I it's kind of hard when you have a rookie having to go up against, the Browns, which that one they probably should have won. And then I'm forgetting.
Steelers and Ravens are in their division as well.
Yeah, and then they play the Steelers this week. So it's kind of hard when your first 3 weeks are very difficult for you initially to start off. Moving on to the last topic here, switching to the NBA. And to mainly look at the Western Conference Final is basically the Nuggets got the big win on Tuesday, beating the Lakers 114-106, giving themselves a little momentum coming into the series. But at this moment, does this mean that the Nuggets can pull off yet another upset? Josh?
I am going to say yes. Now, Matt, I know we talked about this a little bit before. You don't know me that well. I'm not an optimist for Denver sports, and this is the one time I am optimistic about the Denver Nuggets.
The biggest pessimist I know here.
Yes, I can't even deny that. Both times we were down 3-1. Earlier in this playoffs, I said no chance they come back, no chance. After they've done it twice, become the only team in NBA history to come back from down 3-1 in the playoffs in 2 different series. I can't pick against them. Jamal Murray's becoming a bona fide co-star next to Nikola Jokic, and Jeremy Grant has been playing really well. I think the Nuggets end up winning this series in 7, but it starts right. They have to win Game 4 tonight, and if they don't, I don't see them winning the series. But Game 4, coming in, got the momentum win in Game 3. I think the Nuggets steal this one and then go on to win the series.
Here's what I'll say to that, Josh. You are wrong about one thing. Number one, I'd like to say I love your optimism here. It makes me happy. However, the only way the Nuggets win the series is if they lose tonight and go down 3-1. That's just a pattern. You can't work against that.
Can't break tradition.
But here's my stance here, guys. Out of my 17 years or so of watching the playoffs, baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, it reminds me a lot. Being successful in the playoffs is like being served first at a bar. If you are hot, you will be successful. So
I love this analogy.
Yes, I'm here for it, man.
if you're hot, you will be successful. If you have momentum, you will be successful. I can't tell you the amount of times that I thought the St. Louis Cardinals were going to lose in the first round of the playoffs and they go on to win the World Series. I mean, I'm still having nightmares over the 2011 World Series when the Texas Rangers blew it twice. But that's getting away from the topic. Here's the thing, though. The Lakers have the 2 best players in the series. The Nuggets may have the next few best players. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray are far better than anyone else the Lakers got. And I would say the Nuggets can pull this off, but they do have a certain roadblock in their way. A certain man who has the record for most playoff wins. Certain man who has not lost in 11 conference finals, and a certain man who is arguably the greatest player of all time, and LeBron James. So as much as I would say I would like the Nuggets to win this series, at the end of the day, as much as it pains me, I just don't think they can do it.
How many games?
Good question.
7 games.
7?
They'll go down 3-1 and
Okay.
they'll come back.
Okay. See, I am less optimistic. All right. Now I can see, I think the Lakers will be able to rebound from that loss. They're going to probably win tonight, put themselves up 3-1. And realistically, I think the Nuggets win one more. I think they lose in 6. There's just too much talent on that Lakers side, and they're not going to get as flustered as the Clippers did in their series. Because Clippers, the moment
there's a lot of youth on the Lakers.
Yeah, and you compare the Lakers and the Clippers. The Clippers, the moment they faced any kind of adversity, they shut down. Kawhi Leonard started missing shots, and Paul George started missing shots.
He never made shots.
Good point. But either way, but I mean, those two guys, nothing happened. I don't see that happening with the Lakers. They lose in 6. I mean, there's just, and I'll say they go on to win the title, the finals.
You both are forgetting. The Nuggets are coming into this series down 3-1. The Lakers won 3 times in the regular season. Now, listen, the Nuggets have to replicate the Game 3 performance in Game 4. Because I'm with you, Matt. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they're the best players in the series, no doubt. But the Lakers do not have much depth in their bench. If you can neutralize their bench and keep, say, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kyle Kuzma, if you can keep them under 10 points, it's going to be tough to lose because the Lakers do not have anybody outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron James to handle scoring, rebound. Well, they do have 2 centers, but they don't have the same consistency outside of those 2 guys that the Nuggets do. The Nuggets' best characteristic is their depth and continuity. The Lakers don't have that. This Nuggets team has been together for, I think, 4 years. They've only added 1 to 2 guys. Jeremy Grant was added this year, and he's been a fabulous addition, hitting the 3-ball with consistency, playing good defense. He is going to be a huge factor in this Game 4 tonight, and I think if he can score 15 or more, the Nuggets win.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the Nuggets have been together for a long time, and this is a team that has a lot of great chemistry, which is the complete opposite of the Los Angeles Lakers. And you are right. If they keep those Lakers side pieces under 10 points and not being able to perform, that's a great recipe for success. There's not a lot of ways to beat LeBron James. So I say the best point of attack for the Nuggets is to let them get beat by those side pieces. You double zone, do whatever you have to against LeBron and AD, and be okay with getting beat by Kyle Kuzma or Alex Caruso.
I'd be pretty upset if Alex Caruso beat the Nuggets.
But you shouldn't be able to. That's what I'm saying.
You just balls out. I'd be so mad. Don't even. You just created a terrible scenario in my mind.
You put that image in his head, and now he's not going to be able to think about it.
I don't like this, Matt.
But that's going to do it for today's episode of Crossing the Line. This is going to probably be Josh and I are new additions, so we're probably going to be the new permanent pieces unless Brian and Sergio get fired.
I want to be surprised.
They try to do a Fail Mary with Houston.
They're nothing without me.
Yeah, trying to teach them how to not cheat or how to cheat and not get caught.
that is the Fail Marys are the epitome of wisdom. They're never wrong.
That's very true. But with that, we will see you guys next time and have a fantastic week.